as a marketeer, you have to learn the art of distilling between the forest and the trees. As an engineer, you think about the features in your product and you're not actually programmed to think about the larger picture. The thing which I've always stood at is have the ability to take the risk, but never give up on it. It's a W, right? It's a rotating helix. But if you look at the logo, it actually represents two hands coming together.
You're listening to the Radcast. If it's radical, we cover it. Here's your host, Ryan Alford.
Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to the latest edition of the Radcast. I'm Ryan Alford, your host. We're getting radical today, folks. Got a good one today. We've been working on, we talk about this at the agency. We've been working on some Cisco. We've been helping our partner ScanSource, and I'm really excited to have Aruna Ravichandran on the show, the CMO of Webex by Cisco. Aruna, welcome to the show.
Oh, I am so excited to be here, and thank you for having me this morning.
It's my pleasure. I trust that you are staying safe and sound there in California, and all things are sunny and beautiful like it here is in South Carolina. It's still steamy here. Still 92 degrees yesterday. You guys hitting any fall weather yet?
Not yet. And that's why, we have to pay the weather tax living in California.
Exactly. Hey, I'll be in California in a few weeks. I'm going on another podcast and meeting some clients out there. So I'll be on the West Coast. So maybe we can hook up. Who knows? Aruna, I do want to start. You're the CMO of a gigantic company and group within Webex. Video calling is all the rage in work from home. It was kind of moving that direction anyway, but certainly the pandemic, for good or bad, has had a lot of impacts on technology and other things. I know we'll get to some of that, but I think you're such an inspiration in your position, in what you've done and your history, and I'd really love to just kind of start there for everyone, just giving your background and professional highlights and things like that.
Sounds good. So I was born, raised in India, and very earlier on, my career path in India was actually chosen for me by my mom, who's a big inspiration, and I was told that I had to pick 3 career paths. I had a choice, and I had to pick only one of them. It's an engineer, a doctor, or a loser. And very earlier on, I loved math, and I decided to basically pursue a career in engineering. And so fast forward, got my bachelor's in computer science, came into the United States, had a very, very successful career grew from an engineer to an architect into an engineering director at Hewlett-Packard. And these were the days, the pre-dot-com days. And 10 years into a very successful career, I decided that I'm going to make a pretty big and a risky move, and decided to go into the darker side of the business, which is all about marketing, because I knew that I could make a bigger impact. Because even while I was in engineering, while I was a really good engineer, I always gravitated towards the voice of the customer. And I also believe that the symbiotic marriage of technology and marketing together was an untapped supercharger, which pretty much will help in terms of innovation and growth, not just for my career, but also I could play a big role in terms of being able to help technology companies. And now I see the world in a very different way through the lens of a CMO. And I also believe that now technology can change the world, connect us in different ways, and also can make it a very, very can give us an opportunity to create an equitable and inclusive playing field where no one is actually left behind. And so given that, I've now been on the marketing side for about 15 plus years, and it's been a continuous journey of learning. And as a marketeer, you have to learn the art of distilling between the forest and the trees. As an engineer, you think about the features in your product, and you're not actually programmed to think about the larger picture. And so the part which I love about marketing is the ability to basically, like I said, distill between the forest and the trees, but it's about the story. It's about creating a narrative where you have the ability to have both an emotional as well as a connection to your audience, which are the customers. And so that's been my career path. It was a pretty risk career path because when you make a change like that after a very successful engineering career, you don't know what you don't know. But I am blessed, grateful, and really happy for actually taking the chance and making a shift into the marketing side.
I love it. A lot to unpack there. I guess you can go back. You should have told your mom, engineer, doctor, marketer, or was it loser?
It was.
Yes,
Definitely.
throw marketer in there. But hey, but you bring it. There a lot to unpack there. But it's like you bring the technical side of the engineering, which is the science, if I can call it that. But you had this natural. We're kindred spirits. This natural humanity that comes with, the art of storytelling. And it sounds like, you've been able to kind of bring those two sides together because a lot of times, marketers don't necessarily, a lot of them, that's not a standard career path. It's usually like one or the other. Like I'm into the building blocks of engineering of how these things happen or these products are built versus the art of telling about them in some unique way. That's a pretty unique path.
It definitely is a huge advantage because if you think about B2B companies, technology tends to be pretty complex. And so, like I said, I'm definitely grateful for my engineering background because it gives me the ability to, build a narrative at a higher level, but also gives me the ability and a seat at the table with my customers so that I can dig deep into the product side. So very, very grateful for that and enjoy actually doing that. And a big part of that is on the marketing side, it's opened up a lot of doors, especially at least for me. And through my 25-year career, I've built a lot of very, very positive relationships with a lot of C-suite, like CIOs and CTOs. And definitely, grateful for my engineering background because I have an opportunity to have a deep technical discussion with them if needed.
What do you think about, in the U.S., the engineering path is not a common path for women, Like, I have to think and know, just from reading about you and leading into this, that you've been an inspiration in a lot of ways. But how would you compare those paths, growing in India versus, U.S. and how a lot of women, come in marketing for sure, but like, it seems like the engineering path isn't as common. Is that something you take on or you talk about much?
Yes, very much so. So, like I said, in India, it was made easy for me because my mom actually gave me a career track to actually pick. But coming into the United States, I'm a mother of two girls, one who's 19 years old and another one who's 23 years old. And it was a challenge to basically get them to start thinking about embracing a STEM career because I watched both the girls as they grew up in the United States. Both of them were born, raised here. And I fundamentally believe that in high school, is when kids actually make up their mind, right? Like, so if you go to a college, you can pick you might not have to pick a major, and people don't know what they don't know. And pretty much had to have a lot of arm wrestling both with my girls in order to basically get them to start thinking about STEM. And now one of my daughters is a data scientist, works for Twilio. And while she basically arm wrestled with me throughout her high school, when she went into college, she realized, what an amazing opportunity it actually provided for her. And there are not many people who actually go into a computer science degree over here. And I think out of her class, she went to Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo. And out of a class, I think of about 500, 600 people, there was less than 2% of the students who actually were in her computer science major. So I think, fundamentally what I've seen is the younger generation, the girls don't know. And so they pick a path being influenced by whoever they actually meet at that particular time. And I do believe, and I'm very passionate about that particular topic. And once they go into college, it's very hard to basically make the switch. And so you need to start in middle school and high school in terms of being able to influence the younger generation, especially women, because I think girls tend not to choose a STEM career because they probably feel that it's a tough choice, even though they're smart enough. And being able to stay at it is also a very hard thing to do.
Yeah.
So, agree with you 100%.
Yes, and there must be some smart genes in the family because those are not easy. Like you nailed it there at the end. Some difficult career choices, but hey, the path to greatness isn't always easy.
It is not. Yes.
Talk about, and I want to talk about your book. I want to talk more about WebEx and all those things, but I do want to stay down this path of kind of your background and being a mother in the career. I think there's some interesting things there. I think it'd be interesting for our audience. But what's it been like? I mean, I don't want to say there's no telling where you're headed, but you're at a very high point in your career, a place where a lot of people would like to be. And you've done it as a mother, raising children. I mean, what's that experience been like?
It's definitely a balance and it's tough, right? Like I always tell people, you can probably be very good at two things. Two things. And that is a true statement, at least from my side. If you want to be a jack of all trades, master of none, so be it. But if you really want to be good at your discipline or really want to be good as a mother, you have to make a lot of hard choices. And I did a lot of hard choices during my career in order to raise my two girls. One of them is, I have to tell you a little bit about the risk I took. It was not just about making a switch from engineering to marketing. I actually was an engineering director managing a global team around the globe. And one day came back home when my younger one, Tanya, was, I think, about 7 years old. And I decided that, yep, I have decided to pursue my passion, which is an unknown passion, and move into marketing side. And I remember at that time, my family thought I'm going through midlife crisis because nobody actually wants to give up a very successful career. And went back, started to interview internally. At that time, I worked at Hewlett Packard, and I realized that it was not very easy to make a parallel move. I couldn't move from an engineering director into a director for marketing. So I ended up taking a demotion, a 3-level demotion, which is why I said that the family thought I was going through midlife crisis, and became a product manager and a product marketing manager. And why is this important? Because many times in life, you don't want to take the risk because it comes with, you have to take a cut and pay. And you don't know what you don't know. You don't know whether you have the ability to get to the next level. But the thing which I've always stood at is have the ability to take the risk, but never give up on it, right? So that, and in order to basically pursue a career in marketing or in engineering, if you really want to be good at your discipline, like I said, pick only two things. And I picked two things. That is, pursue a career in marketing, and I was damn good at it. And the second part is to be a good mom. And there are other things. And so because of that, I did not have a lot of social life because you have to be razor focused. You have to prioritize. You have to make time for, their soccer game. Many a times I couldn't go to those soccer games. And even now, when I think both the girls have now, are no longer with me at home, and I wish I could go back in time and go to those soccer games or their water polo games. But regardless, I would say that I picked those two things. And I'm also grateful because I couldn't have done this without the nannies I had in my life. And they were almost a second family to me. And, that's how I raised both my girls.
I love it. And, a lot there as well. I think, especially the part where you talked about, and I can relate to the family part. Like I have kids, so I have 4 boys, and so we literally choose two things. It's family and work. It's like there's no in between. Like there's no I don't know. Sometimes my friends that don't have kids will joke, "Hey, you never do this or that." And I'm like, well, I've got time for two things, and sometimes 1.5. So I can relate to that a lot. I had a T-ball game last night. I did make it to that one, but I can relate.
Good for you. Good for you. That's awesome.
Yeah. but what you talked about sometimes being willing to take 3 steps back to take 10 forward. I mean, you took three
Yep.
steps back and you've gone about 100 forward, because you obviously embraced something you were good at that you've obviously excelled at. I think there's a lot to learn there for people because, there's inherent risk in going after what you want to do and what you love. And you may not always start down that path day one, but when you want to make that turn, you can't be afraid of, especially when you can, it's not, as long as you're not completely going off the cliff, with your steps backwards, but to take a pay cut or do those kind of things to really go after something you love, I think is really critical.
It is. It is definitely the case. And I also will say that I also learned a new discipline, and that also has played a big role through my entire life. When I actually had my daughter, my older one, I gained a substantial amount of weight. And I was always raised to be very confident. I was an extreme extrovert. That is my personality. And I never knew what it is to actually feel uncomfortable or, go through a situation in life where, I probably gained about 80 pounds with my older daughter. And that was a low light in my life, not because I gained that weight. It's because I also had a premature baby. My older daughter was actually born at 8 weeks before my due date, and she was just like 2 pounds and 11 ounces. And so I had to deal with two tough situations at the time. One is gaining that weight and then also raising a premature child. And as time flew, I realized that I had to find a way to basically keep me sane and find a motivation to get back to form. And that is when I basically decided to pick something which I'd never explored before. And I decided to basically embrace kickboxing or body combat or martial arts at the time. And fast forward 10 years later, I took it to the next level. Like I said, like anything I do, I'm a perfectionist. And I take it to the next level. I became a kickboxing instructor. And that discipline has played a big role in shaping who I am because it taught me the ability to have self-control and gives you the power to follow through on your actions without actually losing motivation along the way. It also gives you the strength to not really procrastinate. And most importantly, what kickboxing actually taught me is to persevere, especially when things get tough. And that discipline is something which I learned, and practice even now, which has had a big impact in my life.
I love that. And circle that for a highlight clip from this episode. I like that, the power of discipline. But I want to ask you something. Like, obviously, I know at this stage and your successes and all of those things, where confidence comes from. But where does your confidence originate from? Because I sense it in you, and I certainly could see, where you've gotten to this point where it would come from today. But I sense that you've probably always been confident, and I wonder where that comes from.
It comes from my mother, and that's why I said, like, she's always been my alma mater, the light of my life. Very earlier on, she taught me three things, and I grew up knowing those three important things. One is, she said, alive at 25. Number one is to be independent. And number three is to make a charitable contribution to the society. This rings in my ears. My girls also resonate with this because I raised them with these three important principles. Why is it? And people ask me, what is about alive at 25? And what I learned out of that is that, the mortality rate is, goes like this. Between the age of 16 through 25, because people do crazy things. You drink, you drive, you have DUI, you have accidents, and the death rate is very high. After 25, it pretty much is like a straight curve, and then it basically goes up again after you reach 60. And so, as a parent, if your son or a daughter reaches 25, good job, mom, because that is an accomplishment, especially in today's world. The second thing is independent. Being able to raise, whether it is a man or a woman, does not matter. Being able to be independent, being able to make, choices of your own, and being able to, live a life independently is not very easy to do. And so the choices you make like whether it is a career choice or whether it is a choice in terms of practicing a discipline, it's you have to own it and take accountability for it. And so that plays a big role. And I was always raised, to think independently, especially at a time in India. This was at a time in India when women never worked. My mom worked for 40 years as a public relations officer for a Canadian company. And so that is where, I learned what it takes to be a very confident, career woman. And then last but not the least, you have to think about the society. Is there some way where you can actually give back? Because the world is a full circle. I always believing in actually giving a little bit back in the little time you actually have. And so these are the three principles I've carried through my life, and my mom has played a big role in terms of being able to shape how I was as I grew up in India.
I love the alive at 25 as the father. Back to my boys, I right now, they're 12, 10, 9, and 5. And so right now we keep them out of harm's way. But when they get to, that, like you said, maybe 15 to 25, all I can think about is how do we keep them out of harm's way when they're not in our purvey at all times? So
Exactly.
it's a struggle. It's, you teach them right from wrong, and you discipline them, and you do those things, but it is a precarious time in life for when things that I've never looked at that as a plan. I'm going to look up that when as the data. I'm really curious now because it makes a ton of sense. I'm like, was even thinking of my own life, like, yeah, that sounds about right. Let's talk about the book, DevOps for Digital Leaders. What was your inspiration for the book, and what was like some of the key takeaways you want readers to get from it?
So this was my time, before I came here into Cisco. I used to be the CMO and run all of DevOps marketing for the previous company.
Yep.
So one of the key things I also realized is, like I said, given my engineering technology background, I always gravitate towards the voice of the customer, and I had built a lot of relationships with CIOs and CTOs. And as I talked to a lot of the CXOs during the time, I realized that DevOps is like a discipline, and there is no framework. There is no Gartner's Magic Quadrant. There is no Forrester Wave. And everybody, used to DevOps wash everything. And as I talked to a lot of the C-suite customers, and I learned about some of the best frameworks and practices they've actually adopted, I looked around and I saw that there were a lot of technical books on DevOps, but there was no book which was like a chronicles of DevOps, which talks about, good frameworks and disciplines which customers have actually adopted and deployed. And so that's how, my DevOps books was actually born. I would actually call it chronicles of customer stories with respect to DevOps. I interviewed about 10 Fortune 500 companies, CIOs and CXOs, and they're all listed in the book. And then wrote about what are some of the frameworks they've actually created and why did it work for them, and what is the ROI they actually got out of that best effort. And I will always be a technology oriented CMO, and I will gravitate towards that. And one of the reasons I also wrote the book is because it basically helps build thought leadership. Right. So because there are so many different opportunities out there, and like I said, I am really obsessed with the voice of the customer. Customer is the king, and I'll go above and beyond in order to make sure that we keep customers happy. And so this was one way to basically build thought leadership, learn from customer stories, and build that book so that it would add value to other customers.
Very, very cool. Hey, I mean, I called you the CMO to start, but we're author, mother, CMO, and badass kickboxer. I mean, we got all kinds of titles going here. I didn't do you justice, Aruna. Very multifaceted. Let's shift a little bit to today and what's going on with technology and video calling and, everything that's happening. What's been, some of your key initiatives with Webex and, both maybe in the last, year or so, but if certainly moving forward, what are some of the priorities for you with the brand?
Okay, so I would say, this the last year and a half or almost 2 years now with the pandemic, things have changed radically. Video conferencing was known by a selected few, especially large enterprises were the ones who actually knew about video conferencing. Now, even a 3-year-old knows what is video conferencing, right? Because with the pandemic, the whole market around video conferencing, being able to talk to people in a virtual way, has been completely democratized. And so in fall of last year, the Cisco leadership team, with Jitu Patel, my manager, who's the EVP of the collaboration business, decided to basically make a big investment on the marketing side. And at that particular time, we realized that we faced a tough situation because with the pandemic, we had even though we continued to be the leaders in the enterprise space, but we did not have the hearts and minds of the end users, right? Like we did not have a perception that we are cool and fun. And so it was a big challenge, which the team and I had to basically undertake. And that is where the team did a phenomenal job. First, we had to overcome perception issues. Second, we had to land big punches in the awareness fight that our new and louder competitors were already started to have a play in the market. And last but not the least, it's not just about video conferencing. It's about owning the conversation around hybrid work. While video conferencing is one of the areas when you think about the new way of working, this whole market around hybrid work has not been defined. And that's where our teams have now started to play a big role. And first and foremost, I had to implement with my team 3 important strategies. One, had to rebrand Webex. So in June 2021 of this year, for the very first time in Webex's 25-year history, the team rolled out a brand new rebrand campaign with Webex. So what did this mean? It means that we rolled out a brand new brand system, which included not just a logo. It included a logo, brand new, fresh, modern color palette, iconography, typography, photography, everything completely changed. If you actually go to webex.com, you'll see our entire brand system come together, and we don't look like the previously how we actually used to look. And so why did we do the rebrand? Because with for us here at Webex, our purpose, and especially here at Cisco, is to create an inclusive future for all. And a big part of this rebrand is to also to send that strong message. If you look at our logo, our brand new logo, because we are a SaaS-based product line, the logo is in the app store, and it's going to be on your mobile device. And if you join a Webex call, you'll be able to see the logo. It's a W, right? It's a rotating helix. But if you look at the logo, it actually represents, 2 hands coming together. It is symbiotic about our commitment towards inclusivity. So the entire brand system focused on a core design principle, which is around inclusivity. And you'll see our entire brand system reinforce that through our designs, through our imagery, through our photography, and everything across the board. We want to make sure that we represent a diverse group across geographies, across age groups, across location, because with Webex, now we have the ability to basically, bring everyone together regardless of where you're actually located, regardless of the time zone. And so technology becomes a big enabler. And so that's how the rebrand campaign was born in the first 25 years. And it was very important to do that in order to send a strong message to the industry that this is your brand new Webex. So that's the first one. The second thing the team did is how it's not just about the rebrand. How would consumers basically, get to know about Webex? I don't know about you, but hopefully you've seen it, is we basically then launched a global campaign, which is called Driving Hybrid Work. Mm-hmm. And this campaign we created with our favorite customer, McLaren, the Formula One team.
Yes.
And this campaign was about showing the brand new Webex, how the McLaren team is able to do fan engagement. How are they able to communicate with their engineering team while they design the race cars of the future? So if you look at this particular campaign, this campaign video is now activated across several different markets, and hopefully you would have seen it on during the NBA playoffs across multiple different broadcast channels like CNN, ESPN, Fox Sports, so on and so forth, even connected TV like Roku and Hulu. And the exciting part of this driving hybrid work campaign, where we chose McLaren as our customer, is that it's awesome to see the multiple different faceted use cases which Zach Brown, now I built a fabulous relationship with Zach Brown, and he'll actually tell you the value he and team are actually getting with fan engagement, with their slipstream technology, with Webex, especially now the McLaren's race car season is in full effect. And I don't know whether you know that, last week, Italian Grand Prix, McLaren took home P1 as well as P2 with both Ricciardo as well as Landis. So it's been an amazing campaign and the icing on the cake, because everybody launches a lot of different campaigns across the board. And the highlight for the team and I was during one of the episodes of Mad Money, Jim Cramer, unsolicited, and he was talking about Zoom during Mad Money. And then he basically called out the Webex ads and he said, "Oh my God, have you seen the new Webex ads? I think they're quite compelling." That was awesome.
Hey, shameless, nice plug there. Free plug.
Yeah, exactly, right? And so how many times as a team do you get a shout out from Jim Cramer on Mad Money for a campaign which the team actually launched during this particular time? And so those are some of the key things the team has especially done, and more things are actually going to come with the marketing team as we look towards the future.
Yeah, and it's interesting, growing up in the enterprise space, like WebEx was always kind of the Band-Aid of video calling, in the enterprise space. And then the pandemic happens and, you've got consumers and enterprise using it. Competition comes into space, and you guys are definitely positioned well to kind of fight off, I think. And what's interesting, I think, that people don't realize, and hybrid is a good word, especially relates to a WebEx, it's kind of a one-size-fits-all with some of the other competitors. Like, it's one experience. And I think what separates WebEx is the hybrid approaches for how you can customize the experience based on what you're doing. And I think that's what you kind of brought to life with how McLaren's doing it and how different teams are. We ironically work with Ultra Fabrics, which is the fabric in McLaren sports cars, one of our clients. So I'm very familiar with McLaren and that campaign. But I do think, hybrid work, hybrid approaches, and WebEx is hybrid, right?
It is. And the unique thing we actually have to bring to the market when you think about hybrid work is about enabling new ways of working, right? Like, the world is not going to go back to the pre-pandemic side. People are going to continue to work from home. People are going to continue to work from the office, and people are going to continue to work anywhere in between. So how do you ensure that everyone has got an equal seat at the table? Yeah. That's not something easy to do, because when people come back into the office, you want to make sure that remote participants don't feel left out. Yeah. And with technology, you can absolutely make sure that whether you're in the office or whether you're at home, everybody's got an equal seat at the table. Here is an example on what we are actually doing with WebEx. We call this feature functionality as people focus. Let's say you're in a conference room with 4 different people, and you're in a meeting with about 4 different remote participants. How would it appear in a regular video conferencing call? You will see one window with 4 people in the conference room, and then you will see another 3 windows with the remote participants, right? Mm-hmm. Which means that everybody's not got an equal seat at the table. What we have done is those 4 people who are in the conference room will no longer show up like they're in the conference room. We have actually extracted them, and each one will show up as a separate, 2x2 grid, so that everyone has got an equal seat at the table, and it does not appear that you're actually working in the office or you're working from home. And so these are some of the key innovations we actually brought to market. And if you have seen the McLaren ad, the other thing we have done is to break down the barriers across geography, location, so that we give equal potential for everyone around the globe. So one of the other key innovations we brought to market is while you're on a Webex call, if you want to basically consume, I could be talking in English and the person could be in Poland and they want to consume it in Polish or in French. You can basically pick the drop down menu and change the language. And I could still talk in English, but it'll automatically translate it into 108 languages in real time.
Wow.
And so that's how you create an inclusive world, because it's no longer about technology just doing status quo. It's about how can you bring those kind of inclusive features so that you level the playing field so that everyone has got an equal seat at the table.
It's really fascinating. I did not know that language technology. You guys already implemented that. That's crazy and amazing at the same time, especially that it's in real time. But what I don't think we've completely digested as a society, especially a working society, is the complete picture of the hybrid work environment. And it sounds like Webex is at the forefront of kind of helping define different things. Because I hadn't thought about the equal seat at the table, but when you think about the mindset of participating in these things and where you might be, and some people, look, we're going to be in a hybrid work, probably forever. I just don't know.
Yes.
I don't think this genie's going back in the bottle. Like
It does not. It does not.
And so, thinking about it in a smart, concise way about how to make people feel truly included, no matter where they are in the world, be it home, be it work, be it office, whatever that might seem, is really fascinating and really forward thinking about some of the psychology involved with the hybrid approach.
It is. And I'll add another thing, right? Like there is this growing concern about video fatigue. People are, if you look across the board in the market, it's all about mental well-being. And that is another area where I think technology can play a big role. And so some of the key things we have actually done in order to basically focus on employee well-being is to come up with partnerships. So we recently created a partnership with Ariana Huffington's company. She's got an app which is called a Reset app. So with that particular partnership, like if you are going from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting, research has shown that if you take a 5-minute break between your virtual meetings, it has a tremendous role to play in your mental health. And so with this Reset app, it'll automatically give you a notification and it'll say, hey, Aruna, you've been in meetings back to back. Do you want to basically go and do a kickboxing lesson or do you want to go for a walk, right? So it's about being able to bring a little bit of break in your long days, because with this new concept of hybrid work, the days have gone extended and it's blended between your work life as well as your personal time. And so technology now is going to become a big enabler, because we all know that hybrid work is here to stay. And with us, we not just make the technology in order to help hybrid work, but we also make the beautiful devices. And I have to say that with our beautiful devices, I personally don't go through this video fatigue. And I can go from meetings to meetings across the board without having to go through that. But again, that is where technology is going to become even more important as you think about the future of work, which is going to be hybrid.
I love it. As we start to close out here, Aruna, you talked about it throughout the discussion a bit, but I mean, where do you see, the future of technology and work? I mean, are there innovations that are coming or different things, either with Cisco and Webex, or as holistically with your crystal ball that I know you must have? Every CMO has a crystal ball, right? You got to have rear view mirrors and crystal balls, right? Well, any big things out there that you're seeing coming?
It's going to be hybrid work. That is the future of work. And I do believe it's not just with Webex, and I think it's with Cisco and Webex and our underlying technology with networking, with security. We are going to be one of the leaders and the most formidable player in the market when you think about hybrid work, because hybrid work is not just about remote work. It's about being able to ensure that employees have the ability, flexibility, inclusivity, security, and manageability to basically work anytime, anywhere, whether you're working from home, in the office, and anywhere in between. Work is not about where you work. Work is about actually what you do. And technology now becomes a huge enabler to ensure that work gets done, regardless of whether you're working from home, office, or anywhere in between. And I think I am extremely excited for what Cisco can actually bring to the table to our customers, our prospects, and everyone around the world in terms of being able to help everyone to embrace hybrid work.
Well, speaking as someone that has been fortunate enough to touch parts of your business, I can speak to how great a company Cisco is and their commitment to that. You got time for a quick rad or fad? I give you like 4 keywords, and you tell me whether it's rad or fad.
Okay.
All right. Number 1, TikTok, rad or fad?
Rad.
All right. Oatmilk.
Fad.
Fad?
Yes.
Video calling.
Rad.
That was a layup. You know, what can I say? And finally, where I think all our hearts and minds are, the hybrid work, rad or fad?
Rad, my friend, without a doubt.
I know it is. Aruna, it's been really enlightening. A ton to unpack there for everyone listening. You're an inspiration, and I think, I do a lot of personal motivation stuff, and I was like, I didn't know how. Obviously, we had a lot of technical discussion, but I think a lot of people are going to take some really keys away from this, and really, really appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Where can everyone
really
keep up
enjoyed
with
this
you? Where can everyone keep up with everything Aruna? I mean, obviously Webex.com. We'll tout that, but where can everyone keep up with anything we talked about today?
So you can follow me on Twitter, Aruna13, or connect with me on LinkedIn. And I basically put out an article on my LinkedIn profile, and I talk about a topic which is very near and dear to my heart. It is about being able to get younger girls and women into a STEM career. And so would love to basically connect with the audience, and you can always find me on social.
Love it. Love it. Well, she just told you where to find you. You know where to find us. We're at theradcast.com. Search for Aruna. Search for Webex. You'll find all the highlights from this. You know where to find me. I'm at Ryan Alford. I'm verified on all the platforms. We'll see you next time on the Radcast.